Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, we're going to be covering the final of the dynasties of India's civilizations, the Bengalis. As a general rule, they say you should save the best for last. Though in this case, it's kind of the opposite, with Bengalis technically being the worst 1v1 Arabia Civ in 2022 if you combine all ELO ratings, and off to a pretty similar start so far this year. Now before you start claiming it's all rigged, that's the Bengals and not the Bengalis. They sound similar but are two different things. In contrast to their poor Arabia performance though, Bengalis are actually a top 10 civ on closed maps, which tells you a lot about the civilization. They're very late game focused, usually relying on playing defensively and booming until they're able to reach their armies of very slow and expensive, but potentially quite strong units. Let's check them out. We'll start with their team bonus, which is that their trade units generate 10% food in addition to the usual gold. Considering a pretty good trade route generates about 25 gold per minute for each trade cart, give or take, that means with 40 trade carts, you're getting about 4 extra farmers worth of food income. Functionally speaking, that's really an upper reasonable limit, and it doesn't sound that amazing, though it is increased by a Spanish ally and can at least contribute to being one of several trade bonuses synergizing on your team. Moving on to their proper civ bonuses, the first is their elephant units receive 25% less bonus damage and are more resistant to conversion. This affects 3 different units, and of course addresses elephants' 2 biggest weaknesses, the spear line and monks. To start with the battle elephant, against the spear line, this allows them to take 2 more hits than usual in both Castle and Imperial Age. To get a sense of how that plays out on a large scale, here we have 20 halberdiers against 10 elite battle elephants, which note is favoring the elephants in total resources. But side by side, Bengali battle elephants beat double the number of halberdiers, whereas Khmer in comparison are pretty easily handled. Halberdiers are of course still a counter in cost effectiveness, but don't underestimate a mass of Bengali elephants. Likewise for elephant archers, against their nemesis, the elite skirmisher, the reduced damage increases the number of javelins they can tank from 23 to 28. This is getting surprisingly close to an even trade with total resources, especially after a unique tech letting their elephant archers fire 20% faster. They are missing thumb ring to offset that, but elephant archers are a very common way the civilization is played online, and this bonus giving them more resistance against elite skirmishers is a major factor in why. Don't forget the armored elephant, which replaces the battering ram, is also affected. It still gets wrecked by just about anything doing melee damage, but it is a little more resistant against anti-cavalry, anti-elephant, and anti-siege damage. Remember, these are also more resistant to conversion, here with 20 Bengali elephants in blue and 20 generic ones in gray. The conversion resistance not only delays the earliest conversions, but also extends the maximum conversion time. Here, with all generic elephants converted, while Bengali still have about half of their elephants left. It's only an extra second or so that it delays conversions on average, but it is still a big help. Their next bonus is their main economy one, and it's that their town centers spawn 2 villagers when you reach the next age. Unfortunately, this doesn't help at all in Dark Age, contributing to their poor results on aggressive open maps, but in Feudal Age, it's essentially an instant plus 10% boost to your overall economy. Typically, the villagers are set to either wood or gold, and if you set your town center rally point on the way up to feudal, they'll immediately jump out and get to work. The main downside of this bonus is its impact in Castle Age, given you have a significantly larger economy by that point, or at least I hope so, and adding 2 more villagers is much harder to notice. In Imperial Age then, you might think this bonus is completely useless, but in fact the way it works out, it's not 2 villagers when aging up, but 2 per town center. If you have 5 town centers, that means 10 free villagers, meaning you have a little extra incentive to get to Imperial on a map like Black Forest or even Arena, where it's not unheard of to have 4 or 5 town centers while booming. Next up is a bonus only for water maps, where their ships regenerate 15 HP every minute. Keep in mind, ships tend to have quite a bit of HP, and for the galley line, this means anywhere from taking 8 to 11 minutes to fully heal. In a perfectly equal one-on-one fight, it essentially guarantees that your unit will win, though in practice there's a lot of focus firing and overkill, so that doesn't always hold up. And if anything, this helps more in being able to heal it between fights, rather than greatly shift the tide of a battle. Again, you might think this bonus has even less impact in Imperial, where ships have higher damage and even more HP. But of course, at the same time, you'll probably have more ships benefiting in large-scale fights at any one time. Stats-wise, the Bengalis have been poking around top 10, or just outside of that on maps like Islands over the last year. So this obviously is enough to make them at least competitive on water, though not necessarily one of the very best civilizations. And finally, their last bonus is the Slavs' old unique tech, giving monks +3 of each type of armor. Immediately, a monk in Siege Rush might come to mind for Arena, and that is naturally one of their better maps. To get a sense of what +3 armor does for you practically, against scouts and knights, it essentially means you'll survive 1 extra attack in most cases. Against knights that are raiding your base especially, this makes monks one of the Bengalis' go-to counters. Arguably even more impactful is against crossbows, they take 8 instead of 5 bolts, which is proportionally more significant. Where it really starts to shine though is against skirmishers, taking 2.5 times the usual number of javelins. Normally, it can be difficult to send monks forward with your army because they're so easily picked off by ranged units, but 3 extra armor here is really changing that dynamic. So that's their bonuses, giving you something for elephants, navy, monks, and the potential for a pretty serious economic boom with lots of free villagers. Admittedly, one of the glaring weaknesses so far is how slow your units are, with the emphasis on elephants and monks, while you're also lacking knights and cavalry archers, giving you the potential to feel completely outmaneuvered. That's where the unique unit can come in, so let's now take a look at the Ratha chariot at the castle. Now, your unique unit is kind of 2 units in one, but we'll start with their melee version, which is actually quite comparable to a knight. Looking at their stats side by side, you can see they have 1 less pierce armor, but that's offset by having 5 more HP. It turns out their cost is significantly lower though in terms of gold, and interestingly cost wood instead of food, which is a faster resource to collect. Trying them out head to head, you can see they lose by a slim margin against knights before a unique tech you can grab to increase their attack rate. And once you pick that up, they can actually win against a knight, though either way, it's fair to say they're at least comparable in strength. Similarly, one-on-one against pikemen as a common counter, both can win one-on-one, though when you factor in their respective cost, it's surprisingly close to a fair trade for the Ratha from a value stance. At least in melee, it's basically a cheaper knight that requires a castle. Though unlike a knight, you also have the choice to flip to a ranged mode, so you can kite things like spears. And this is really what makes them so unique, as you're getting a knight in melee if you want it, but also something more like a cavalry archer when that suits you better. To make that comparison more formal, here we have their stats side by side, though keep in mind Bengalis don't have cavalry archers. You can see they're not exactly the same, with the chariot being significantly tankier with 55 more HP and more armor, but offset by having 1 less attack. In this case as well, the cavalry archer is technically the cheaper unit. The cavalry archer is a great comparison though when it comes to upgrades, as they're affected by most of the same things, except that Bengalis have an extra unique tech, giving them 20% faster attack, which basically replaces thumb ring. Keep in mind they also need cavalry attack upgrades to improve their attack in melee mode, which in Castle Age makes them very expensive to fully upgrade. So far though, it sounds like it's almost too good to be true. How can it be a cheaper version of a knight in melee, and in most cases would be better or at least a tankier version of the cavalry archer? So aside from upgrade costs, what's the catch? Well, as good as they sound so far, their biggest issue is elite skirmishers. While their higher HP means they can take double the number of attacks as the cavalry archer, their lower attack means they do just 1 damage per shot, as opposed to 2. Meaning despite being more expensive and requiring a castle, they're about equally poor against that very popular unit. Now that might not sound like a problem, as you could just put them in melee mode, right? Well, it turns out they take these skirmishers' bonus damage even in melee mode, as even when they take out their swords, they're still considered cavalry archers. That means in either mode, they take just 16 javelins from elite skirmishers compared to the 120 for a fully upgraded knight. Their reputation is that they're still usable, but always with the drawback of being a questionable unit against skirmishers even in melee mode, which isn't always intuitive. To quickly touch on their Imperial Age upgrades, the Elite Tech gives more HP, a bit better accuracy, more pierce attack in ranged mode, and more melee attack, rounding them out basically across the board. Bengalis also have Parthian tactics, giving them more armor and a bonus against spears. Altogether, it's an interesting mix of 2 units they otherwise don't have, combining their strengths, but also introducing the cavalry archer's various weaknesses in both upgrade costs and skirmisher bonus damage. One thing we've seen that does help them out though is their Castle Age unique tech, which gives them 20% faster attack in both melee and ranged mode. This also applies to elephant units as well, and is pretty straightforward. If you're making any of those units, it's a good way to improve them, and essentially covers up for lacking thumb ring on elephant archers. Their second unique tech goes back to their identity as a booming civilization, and allows villagers to take up 10% less pop space. Given a fully boomed economy is usually in the range of 120 to 150 villagers, this is a relatively straightforward 12 to 15 extra units that you can create. This especially complements their elephants and elephant archers, who rely on having very large numbers to be effective. Admittedly, the 650 gold cost is a little rough in the late game, and is obviously not worth considering until you're bumping up against your population cap. So that's the unique unit and techs. Again, you can see them push toward booming and elephants in particular, with a unique unit to give you at least the option of some mobility. Now let's move on and take a broader look at their tech tree. We'll start off as always with the archers. They get out to a slow start without a Dark Age bonus, but their archers and crossbows after that are completely fine, albeit missing thumb ring. The arbalester is also a little underwhelming as a result, though a unique tech for faster firing and reduced bonus damage makes the elephant archer a really nice option, especially in team games. Remember, you also have the Ratha chariot filling the cavalry archer role, so I'd give them a B+, as even without thumb ring and hand cannoneer, you have some nice ranged options. Next up, for their infantry, they are missing the last armor upgrade and supplies, but otherwise are completely fine. Their infantry isn't great, but is more than serviceable as counter units against eagles or cavalry, with the spearline especially being commonly paired with their good ranged units to keep cavalry civs in check. They have basically the same barracks tech tree as the Huns, but have champion, and since I gave Huns a C+, I think a B- is fair to give to Bengalis. Moving on now to cavalry, it's basically a slightly better version of the Dravidian stable. A scout rush is completely viable, especially with 2 extra villagers, usually giving you a nice edge in any prolonged feudal fighting. Unfortunately, you are lacking hussar and knights of any kind, which, as we saw, isn't fully made up for by your chariots at the castle. Instead, I would look more toward the battle elephant, which get pretty tanky with all upgrades, as well as 25% less bonus damage, making a large impact in fights against halberdiers. They do have some mid-game weakness that holds them back, but I think they end up as a C+ at the stable, brought up to a B- by their unique unit. Next up, for their siege, you have some pretty good options, plus even siege engineers. You are missing bombard cannon, but siege can make a pretty good combination with some of the other units you're pushed toward, like monks or elephants. Your armored elephants even take less bonus damage, and with a unique tech can attack faster, so they're also above average. I'd say it's a B+ for the Siege Workshop overall, and can play a nice complementary role to your core units. Moving on to their navy, the results online have been very respectable, and you can see their tech tree is complete aside from the heavy demo ship. Remember, all of their ships also heal slowly as well, giving a little extra value. In the early game, you are lacking a Dark Age bonus, though in feudal you'll have a couple of extra lumberjacks, which is enough to give them a B+ early on. In the late game, their extra healing puts you ahead of a lot of similarly open tech tree civs, but who don't have a direct bonus, like Magyars as an example. It's enough to give them another B+ in the late game, for a B+ on water overall, and in fact I think the only thing holding them back for me is just their online win rate hasn't consistently placed them in the top 10 on the most common water maps. Taking a quick look at the monks, despite not officially being a monk civilization, I would personally put them in that category. All you're missing here is heresy on account of having so many elephants, but you already get a passive conversion resistance for free. The monks themselves, of course, also have free extra armor, which makes them at least as strong as Aztec monks in many cases. Monks in Siege can also be a very nice follow-up to a fast castle, which remember puts Bengalis at a 4 villager advantage. So altogether, I'd say it's actually an A+ for Bengali monks. Next up for defenses, again, you have lots of options here, only missing Bombard Tower. I actually think it helps when playing Bengalis to go in with a very defensive mindset in at least the early to mid game. They're slow to get going economically and are pushed toward armies that are very expensive and rely on reaching a critical mass, like elephants or chariots. Especially in Castle Age, playing defensively is the right approach in my opinion, as you let your boom take off heading into Imperial, and I'd say they're a B+ for defenses. Wrapping up with their trash units, that is, units that don't cost any gold, I'd say they're okay but not amazing. Your scout cavalry line maxes out a little early, and the halberdier is also missing a bit of armor. The only overt bonus here is that their villagers take 10% less population space after attack, letting you theoretically have a few more units than your opponent. Bengalis actually have a pattern of doing progressively better in longer games, and maybe inspired by that more than anything else, I'd say they're at least a B in Trash Wars. So to give some final thoughts, while yes, they are technically the worst in open maps by performance, I would call Bengalis far from unplayable. For an early game plan, I think you could really do pretty much anything, and either an archer or scout opening are completely viable with 2 extra villagers. You don't even necessarily have to do a lot of early damage, given you're likely at a villager lead, and I think a more passive mindset is appropriate. Instead, it's the late game where they shine, often combining elephants with a trash unit like Elephant Archer and Pike or light cavalry, or Battle Elephant with skirmishers. As tempting as it might be, going full Battle Elephant and Elephant Archer is very expensive, even with a good economy, but maybe can work sometimes in team games. Either way, a big part of why they do so much better on closed maps is you have a much better chance of actually reaching the stage you can incorporate those expensive units. But speaking of expensive, have you guys seen what it costs to have a website built for you? It can be anywhere from hundreds to even thousands of dollars, and that's where this video's sponsor Squarespace can help. If you're a blogger, entrepreneur, or someone looking to build an online presence but have no idea how to make a website from scratch, Squarespace has you covered with great tools to help you out and simplify the website building process. Using one of their templates, I was able to easily and quickly create a website for my editing and proofreading consultation business, Spirit of the Flaw. In the backend, Squarespace have great third-party extensions to even handle things like bookkeeping, taxes, shipping, and scheduling to accommodate your specific needs. You just pick a template and domain name, and you're good to go. The best part is if you use my code, you get 2 free weeks to try it out, and if you like it, you get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So hopefully this video gave you a few new ideas to try out with Bengalis, and maybe not write them off completely. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.